understanding the metaphor, camel through the eye of a needle. Welcome to today's deep dive video, where we explore one of Jesus' most riveting metaphors from Matthew 19:24. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. This phrase, rich in imagery and meaning, has captured the curiosity and contemplation of believers and scholars alike for centuries. Through this exploration, we aim to unpack the layers of this metaphor and its potent implication for our spiritual journey today. At first glance, the image of a camel passing through the eye of a needle seems absurdly impossible, and that's precisely Jesus' point. He uses hyperbole, an exaggerated statement or claim not meant to be taken literally, to effectively emphasize the difficulty, or rather, the impossibility by human means alone for the wealthy to enter the kingdom of God. This metaphor serves not just as an attention grabber, but as a profound spiritual lesson that challenges common perceptions. To truly grasp the weight of Jesus' message, we must step back into the cultural and historical backdrop of his time. In the ancient world, wealth was often seen as a direct sign of God's favor and blessing, a reflection of success and righteousness. Accumulating wealth was not just a personal triumph, but a societal badge of honor, suggesting divine approval. However, Jesus turns this paradigm on its head. At the core of his message is a caution against equating material wealth with spiritual favor. Rather than approving wealth as a sign of being in good standing with God, Jesus warns that it can become a spiritual hindrance. His radical reinterpretation shocked many, disrupting deeply ingrained societal norms and expectations. Jesus highlights the spiritual danger that wealth poses. It can easily create barriers that prevent reliance on God. Wealth has the subtle ability to foster a sense of self-sufficiency and draw one into a false sense of security and independence. Here lies the peril. Where riches exist, there is a temptation to trust in material assets rather than in divine providence, skewing one's spiritual compass. Within the context of this metaphor is an underlying call to humility. Humility becomes crucial in recognizing our dependence on God amidst worldly riches. It's a reminder that spiritual wealth is not measured by earthly standards. The larger question is not how much wealth one has, but how that wealth influences one's relationship with God and others. So, what do earthly treasures mean for our spiritual priorities? Jesus prompts us to reflect on the natural human inclination to gather and possess. This inclination often leads us away from seeking God's kingdom. When material riches take center stage, they obscure our spiritual goals and undermine our pursuit of a life oriented toward God's eternal kingdom. This metaphor encourages believers to continually examine their values. Are we allowing earthly wealth to shift our focus from spiritual dependence? Jesus' teaching remains profoundly relevant as a challenge to consistently evaluate how wealth influences our spiritual lives. The metaphor is not just a caution, it is also an invitation to seek a caliber of faith that transcends worldly acquisitions. Moving from the theoretical to the practical, how do we apply this lesson in our lives? Begin by evaluating your personal relationship with wealth. Consider how you prioritize material possessions versus spiritual pursuits. Practical steps might include simplifying your lifestyle, finding contentment in what is sufficient, and channeling resources toward acts of charity and community support. Jesus' words invite us to introspection, to look at the state of our spiritual affairs. Are we genuinely dependent on God, or do we find a false sense of needlessness due to our material comforts? This introspection is an opportunity for transformation. It's a call toward a more intentional alignment with spiritual values over material pursuits. To live for the kingdom means to allow God's rule to have precedence over our lives. This alignment requires a reorientation of what we value most deeply. Our connection with God and our service to others become paramount. By placing spiritual wealth over earthly acquisitions, we nurture a more profound, enduring fulfillment. In closing, Jesus' metaphor of the camel and the eye of a needle is not just a striking visual. It's a substantive call to examine where our true security lies. As believers, we are invited to shift focus from the impermanence of worldly wealth to the enduring richness found in God's kingdom. This paradigm shift challenges us to redefine our priorities and deepen our reliance on divine provision, aiming not for success as the world sees it, but for significance in the eyes of God. As you reflect on this message, consider embarking on this transformative journey, placing greater value on spiritual wealth and cultivating a life aligned with God's purpose.